So today we are going to discuss about what Ayurveda talks about mental health and what are the sources for the healing systems in the body in a natural way. So it is a holistic approach towards inner well-being. So here the word holistic, I wanted to highlight the word holistic when it comes to the Ayurveda because Ayurveda look into the human body in a multi-dimensional approach. So it means that we just not only just use the natural sources to treat the body, it also we look into the entire diet and lifestyle patterns of a person. So it means it's a multi-dimensional approach towards the well-being of a person. So today I'm offering my prayers to Lord Dhanvantari, who is the god of healing powers for the humankind. So, what is Ayurveda? So, most of you must be thinking that Ayurveda is just only a system of the medicine. It's not only just the system of the medicine, but it's a holistic approach towards a complete well-being. And it's an age-old medical system, or Indian medicine system, which has been took its avatarana. It means which has took its origin from the Lord Brahma. And the age, like we can't really say that when Ayurveda has started to come into the existence, because ever since man has begun his civilization, since then the Ayurveda was into practice. Ayurveda is the only system of the medicine which was helping mankind since then to heal all the health issues. So coming to the origin of Ayurveda, the scriptures of Ayurveda says that it has been originated from Lord Brahma, and from the Lord Brahma it took its descendant to many gods, and they used to practice it to treat the health illnesses of the devatas. It means the deities. And from there, it has been descended to the Rishi Bharadwaj, and from there to Lord Dhanvantari. And from this deity descendant of the Ayurveda, it has reached to the three schools, which to the three predominant teachers of Ayurveda. The first one is the Charaka Maharshi, like he is the author of Charaka Samhita. So Charaka Samhita is the basis for entire treatments which are in the Ayurveda, and it also explains about various diseases and the treatments which are involved in that diseases. And the second important teacher of Ayurveda is Sushruta. So Sushruta is the father of surgery. It's not just the father of Indian surgery. Sushruta is considered to be the father of the surgery. The world has accepted him. So he is the one who has performed surgeries back in BCs and then back during the practice of Ayurveda without any use of advanced technologies, without any use of any microscopes, without use of any scanning systems. He has done the plastic surgeries, he has done the rhinoplasties, he has done the treatment for the fractures. In fact, the basis for the surgical practices now has took from the Sushruta Samhita, and he is said to be the father of the surgery. And we are very proud that he is from the background of Ayurveda. And Vagbhata is another important teacher in Ayurveda, and he took the essence from the writings of Charaka and then the Sushruta, and he gave a different form of the essence. So this is the whole background regarding like what is Ayurveda, and then what's like how it took a descendant from the Lord Brahma and how it reached the mankind. So the three schools of the Charaka, Sushruta, and then the Vagbhata, the teaching used to be in the form of a Guru Sishya Parampara. It means like students used to stay in the Gurukulas, and then they have learned the Ayurveda in a very different way. So coming to the health in Ayurveda, like how Samirji said just now, yes, according to World Health Organization, it says that health is not only just the mere absence of the disease, but it also says like how healthy a person is mentally, physically, and also his social well-being. I believe that this whole concept has been taken from the concept of health in Ayurveda, because according to Ayurveda, health is not only just physical, mental, and then the well-being, but it also involves a lot of factors which tells that a person is really healthy. So these are the few concepts which are present in the scriptures of Ayurveda, which says that a person is healthy. So it means when you're physically healthy, it's not that you are healthy, a complete healthy person. When you're mentally healthy, it's not that you're a complete healthy person. But Ayurveda says that you have to fulfill these criteria in order to feel that you are healthy. So the criteria were the samadosha. So the scriptures says that samadosha samadhatu samagnischa samalakriya prasannatma indriya manah swastasya iti swastya idhyapidiyate. So it means in order to be healthy, you should have samadoshas. So it means balanced form of doshas in your body. We will get into in detail what actually are these doshas and then how it is relevant to keep balanced in state. And it says that to have a balanced bodily tissues, so it means your body should have an equal distribution of the tissues. Tissues means it can be the blood, the bones, the fat, the muscles. The entire systems should be in a balanced way. It means your fat component should not be dominated by your muscle component. Your muscle component should not be dominated by your bone component. So there is a particular ratio, and then there is a particular component of each tissues in the body which says that it should be distributed equally, and it says that you are healthy in that way. The third one is Sama Agni, which means a good digestive fire. So Agni is not just the fire in the body, so it can be correlated to the metabolism which is happening in our body, the cellular breakdown, the breaking of the molecules in the body, the conversion of your food into a nutrient material. So that requires an enzymatic reactions in your body. So well enzymes and a good structured digestive fire in the body will also determine your health. The fourth one is Samalakriya. So good excretions from your body, like in time detoxification of your body through the natural excretions like urination, bowel movements, sweating pattern also says that your body is cleansing naturally and then you are healthy in terms of the excretions. The other one, here it comes the importance of the mental health in Ayurveda, where it says that in order to be healthy, you should have a blissful soul. So it means you should be peace within yourself, and then your soul should be always blissful, the happiness within you. And it also says about the prasanna indriya. So it means all your sense organs should be very light, and it should have a good capacity to receive the right information which is capturing by your senses. You all know that indriyas are pancha jnana indriyas. So it means the information which is captured by your senses. Pancha karmendriyas, the information which is captured by your limbs. The indriyas which have the functions to perform the karmas. And the last criteria is the prasanna manas. It means a peaceful mind will be the actual source of to keep your mental health in a good state. So all these criteria will say that a person is actually healthy according to Ayurveda. So let's look into the concepts like what are these doshas and what's the significance in maintaining the mental health and then the physical health. So the concept of three doshas are really important in Ayurveda, and it is considered to be the three pillars of Ayurveda, because the entire system of Ayurveda, whether it's recognizing the disease, whether it's healing your body, whether it's recognizing what kind of person you are, we make use of these three doshas. So what are these three doshas? We all know that every living and non-living thing in this universe is composed of 5 elements of the nature. They are the ether, which is the space, air, fire, which is Agni, water, and then earth. So these are called as the Pancha Mahabhutas, which are the main elements of the nature. So the Pancha Mahabhutas were also present within the human systems, and they have a specific combinations within them. Like the combination of air and the combination of the space will give you a component called as a vata, which says that air factor predominance in the body. The component of the fire, it means Agni Mahabhuta and Jala Mahabhuta will combine together and will give you a predominance of the Pitta, which is the fire factor in the body. The third one is the combination of water and the combination of the earth. Jala Mahabhuta and Prudhvi Mahabhuta will combine together and will form a dosha, the humor, which is called as the kapha. So these three doshas will run in combination and in cooperation, in coordination with each other. So these three doshas can be compared to the bioenergetic systems in the body. It means the energies within the body which controls the biological systems, which controls the biological mechanisms within our body. So the air in our body is predominant to in functioning anything related to the movement. So it means it is air, means it's the vata. So vata in the body is related to the driving force within our body. So if anything has to move in the body, that should happen in the presence of vata. For example, whether if it is your bowel movements, vata should be there because your bowel has to move out of your body. If it is a nerve conduction system, it means when information is carried from nerve to nerve, it has to move. Like there should be some movement happening in your nervous system, and that should be in the presence of the vata. So that way, vata can be compared to the air in the external environment. So just like how air move in the external environment, the same way vata will perform its functions to keep a person healthy and then to perform the activities in the body. The second component is the pitta. So talking about the pitta is something which takes care of entire mechanisms in the body, which is related to the digestions, which is related to the metabolisms. So if a cell has to produce from another cell, there should be some metabolism happening between those two cells. So that will be under the control of the pitta. So it means it's the fire factor within your body. The third one is the kapha, which means the mucousy components in your body. So all the mucuses in your body, something like the mucus in your lungs, the mucus in your sinuses, like if there is anything which has to bind together in your body, that should be under the control of this kapha. So these three energetic forces, they go in coordination and with integration in each other, and then they perform the entire systems in the body. Not only just they coordinate to perform the systems, but it also have a specific validation in maintaining your biological clocks. Like if you take a 24-hour day, 24-hour cycle, so according to the movement of the sun and the moon, these energetic forces, they will be just shifting from one phase to the other. Just like how you can see in the slide that morning hours are more predominant with the kapha. So that is the reason, like people who have the mucus related issues, something like allergies, asthmas, they have a lot of trouble during the morning hours. Pitta is predominant in the afternoon hours. So that is why, because fire is predominant in the afternoon hours, you will be having a strong appetite and you will be having a heat within the body by the time it's around 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And it's also important to see that, as we are discussing, that it is dependent upon the movement of the sun. The same way, these energetic forces will also move from kapha state to the vata state. And it's not only just the movement of the sun and then the state of the doshas in the body. These state of the doshas will also determine how you think in the morning, how you think in the evening, and how you think in the afternoon. So people like who have a more kapha predominance in the body, they will be so sluggish in the mornings. Like they can't really have active senses. They feel low allergies in the morning. They need a cup of coffee to actually boost their energies in the morning. So that's how predominance of these doshas according to the timings. The same way, these doshas were also predominant in our body according to the rutus, means according to the seasonal changes in the body. Like how if you look at the current weather, so we are in spring season and we are heading towards the summer very soon. So this is called as a Sandhi Kala, and this is really predominant with the kapha. So it means we see people with more mucus related issues in the Sandhi Kalas between spring and then summer. And if you enter into the summer, due to the excessive heat in the environment, so people are more predominant with fire related issues. It means they have so much of heat in the body, the pitta will be so high, and the treatments and the way of thinking, everything will be related to the pitta. So this is how the entire three doshas will maintain the systems of the body, not just the physical systems and the mental systems within the body, but also it depends upon the season, it depends upon the time of the day, it depends upon the weather conditions as well. So it means we are running in the whole concept of three doshas. So we will be moving and we will be revolving around these three things. So how important is these three doshas in our body? So these three doshas is not just the systems within the energy systems within the body, but they also give you a framework physically and mentally. And Ayurveda call this as Prakriti, which is a body constitutions. Which is a body constitutions. Yes, so these are the three basic Ayurvedic body types. So just like how DNA is transferred from both the parents and then they will give you a framework physically and mentally, the same way the dosha predominance in your parents will give you a framework. Like if your mother have this dosha predominance, it means if your mother is more predominant with vata and then pitta, if your father is more predominant with kapha and pitta, so these two combine together like the DNAs and then will give you a framework physically. So you can correlate this way. Like people must be thinking that, okay, I'm like my mother, so that's why I'm obese. I'm like my father, so that's why I'm skinny. So how this is happening? Is it just only the DNA which is playing the part? No, definitely not. Ayurveda says that the doshas which are predominant in the body will determine what type of person you are and what type of framework you have. So the three doshas in the body will have three predominant body types. The first one is a vata body type, the second one is the pitta body type, third one is the kapha body type. So vata body type, so when we are saying it's a body type, so it means they are designed that way. So if you look at a vata dominant person, the vata dominant person will be skinny. He can't put on weight so easily, no matter how much quantity of food he have, how many protein shakes he drink, how many gyms he hit every day, but still he remains skinny. He has so much of bony prominence. His nails will be brittle, his hair will be thin, his skin will be dry, and the same way his emotional and mental status will also be determined. Like a vata person will think a lot, like he doesn't have a control over his thinking patterns. Like how I said, like vata can be compared to the air in the external environment. The same way, like how air will be moving around in the air, the same way the thought process of the vata person will be moving around. So it means their thinking process can't stay at one place. They will link the thought process to one another, and they doesn't know where did they actually start thinking and then where they are ending up. They try to be anxious every time, they overthink a lot because air in the body doesn't make them to settle down at one place. So this is how the vata body type and then the emotional and then mental status of the vata person. The second one is the pitta person. So pitta person is will be like a medium build. He have more fire in his body, and his muscle distribution and his hair and everything will be like medium person. Like even he maintains an average weight. He doesn't lose weight so easily. At the same time, he doesn't gain weight so easily. They have a very sensitive skin, so it means their skin will be so sensitive whenever they are exposing to extreme temperatures. And coming to their emotional status, pitta person will have a strong fire within them. It means they are like an angry young. They have so much of anger within them. They have a fire within them. It means they want to achieve something. Like if they are determined to do something in their mind, they have to do it. So that determines their emotional status. The third one is the kapha. Kapha person is you can assume a teddy bear to the kapha person. Like a kapha person will be fluffy, he will be soft, he will have a thick hair, he is so pleasant, he is so calm, he will be like a super cool person around us. We all, like, in all our friend groups, we definitely have a kapha kind of person who is super cool, and then who is a bindas, who have a bindas kind of attitude. So the kapha person emotional status and the way of thinking, his mental state will also be like that. Like, he doesn't worry about things a lot. Like, he is so sophisticated, and sometimes he can even be so lazy. So this is the kapha body type. It's not that everyone is very predominant with only one body type. There can be different mixtures of the body type. Like, you can be a combination of vata pitta, you can be a combination of pitta kapha, you can be a combination of vata pitta and kapha as well. So this can be correlated to the personality traits in the modern psychology. Like how modern psychology says that if a person is thinking this way, he is introverted. If a person is acting that way, he is extroverted. If you're mixed, he is an ambiverted. And they have even classified many different personality traits according to that. But Ayurveda is trying to keep it very simple by saying that, okay, these three are the things, and this is the basic constitutions of body and mind. Coming to the gunas, it means the types of the mind, which we all know it as sattva, rajas, tamas. Ayurveda call them as manogunas. So it means the three basic natures of the mind. So that these three body types can have these three combinations, different combinations of the manogunas. Like a kapha person can have a combination of sattva and then tamogunas. The pitta person can have a combination of rajas and then sattva gunas. So it means gunas can be there with any type of person. It depends on what mindset you have. It depends on what kind of person you are. And the sattva, rajas, tamas will also depend on what kind of food you eat, what kind of lifestyle you have. So it means it varies. It changes from your lifestyle. It changes from your actual body type. It changes from your hereditary factors. But in general, pitta type of person is said to have more rajas kind of mentality. So it means they have more fire within them. They are very passionate, they are anxious, and they have very short-tempered nature. And the kapha kind of person is said to have more sattva, tamas, and then a combination of sattva mentalities. It means they are calm, they are cool, they have dull-minded, they are very lazy, and they always try to be in a sedentary mode of lifestyle. So these three manogunas will vary. Like, it's not constant. It like, according to my perception, so it varies according to their lifestyle and then their eating habits as well. So this is an overview regarding like what can be the personality traits, and then what could be the body types, and how their mental health, like how the thinking process is affected according to the predominance of the doshas in the body. And yes, so coming to the channeling systems in the body. So we have talked about doshas, and we have talked about the body types. So how relevant it is to the mental health, and how relevant it is to get affected, like a person to get affected with the mental health issues. So in Ayurveda says that the perception to the knowledge is called as the manas. So the word is defined as man and asuna. So each means the one which have capacity to perceive the knowledge is called as manas. So in the body, you all know that there are different pathways which are going on. Like if a blood to travel from one place to another, it requires a circulatory system. For a neuronal activity to transfer, like for neurons to transfer the message from one place to another place, it requires a neuronal pathway. For hormones to act from one organ to the other, it requires a hormonal pathway. So it means according to the modern medications, there are different pathways in the body to carry out different functions. For the digestion, it's the whole digestion systems, right from mouth to the anus. So it's an entire digestive pathway. So Ayurveda explains these pathways, explains these channels in the name of srotas. The word srotas is the channels in the body. And Ayurveda says that these channels are something which you can't see it with your naked eyes. It can't be seen with any microscopes, or it can't be detected through any scans. All you need to do is from where this path is. All the scriptures explain about these pathways is from where actually this has started and what is its output and how it is inflicted in between these things. So Ayurveda says that there are 13 different channels in the body which carries out each actions in the body. Something like Annavaha Srotas, I will explain you about a few Srotases to know the significance of the Srotas and then the channels in the body. Ayurveda says about Annavaha Srotas, which entirely talks about how digestion is going on in the body and what are the channels and what are the organs involved in this Annavaha Srotas. And the other one is Raktavaha Srotas. So it means the channels related to the circulatory system in the body. Rakta means blood. So how blood is produced in the body, from which part it's to where it is going on, and what all the organs involved in this, and what is the pathway of this. So like that, there are 13 different varieties of the channels and then the pathways which is scheduled in the scriptures of Ayurveda. But how about Manas? Does Ayurveda says that there is any particular organ of the organ for this Manas? What are the organs involved in this Manas, and how the information is carried up to the Manas? So that is called under the name of Manovaha Srotas, which means the channels of the Manas, the channels of the heart, or the information which your Manas will perceive. So the information is to the Manas is perceived through Pancha Jnanendriyas and Pancha Karmendriyas. We all know that Pancha Jnanendriyas are the 5 senses in the body, something like Srotras, the perception of the knowledge through hearing, the perception of the knowledge through seeing, the perception of the knowledge through taste, the perception of the knowledge through smelling. So such kinds of Indriyas will gather the information, the way you look, the way you hear, the way you taste. So all these things, along with the combination of the Karmendriyas. Karmendriyas are the one which perform, the Indriyas which perform the actions, something like your hands, your legs, your anus, and your genital organs. So even the Karmendriyas have a perception to perceive the knowledge. Say example, if you hold an object, like if you hold a pen, you know that you have holded a pen. How come you know that this is an object and it's flat, it's like a pen? You should know this object. So your hands are the Karmendriyas which is holding this object, and the knowledge is perceived from these Karmendriyas. So the same way, if you step on something, you know that what you have stepped on, whether it's a book, whether it's a grass, or whether it's a soil, you know how the knowledge is perceiving. Like that, the knowledge perception will happen through the Karmendriyas and through the Jnanendriyas, and all together that will be stored in the Manas. So we can correlate this as a knowledge perception from an object, and that can be stored at a subconscious level of the mind. It's different stages of the mind. So when I'm calling here as a Manas, so you can take a different layers of the mind according to the modern science, like right from conscious mind to subconscious mind, unconscious mind. So the different layers of the mind comes into this. So depending on how deep your perception is, depending on how well you are receiving the knowledge from something, so here I wanted to clear one thing. So the knowledge can be good or bad. You doesn't know. The Indriyas only know to capture the knowledge. They doesn't know whether you are capturing the good knowledge, whether you are capturing the bad knowledge. So once the knowledge is captured, here the Buddhi comes into the place. Buddhi is something which decides whether you have to store this information or whether you have to delete this information, whether you have a good information, like whether it's good or not, whether you have to store this information or not. So Buddhi comes into action there. So you must be thinking, if you're looking at example, if you're looking at a movie where your Chakshu Indriya, so if it means your eyes comes into the place, your eyes perceives the knowledge from the movie what you're seeing. And when the knowledge is perceived by your manas, it means your manas knows that, okay, I'm looking at a movie and I'm getting something from this movie. Your buddhi comes into place, and then it says that whether you have to look at that movie, whether you really like that movie, whether whether you want to keep that knowledge with you or not, the buddhi comes into the action. And combining these two things, if the information is really very important, it can go deep into your soul, and this intact with your soul. So these actions will intact with your soul. And here the concept of karma also plays into this. So this is how the karmas were carried from one janma to the other janma. This is how Ayurveda says that how your atma, how your soul will carry the information from one life, birth life, to other birth life. How come your atma is carrying that information? So this is how the information is carried by that. So when it comes to the mental health, people who are inflicted with the mental health, the buddhi doesn't play its role. The buddhi doesn't know whether this has to be pursued with this or not, whether you have to leave it there, whether you have to capture it, or whether you have to leave it, whether that has to be stored at the level of unconscious mind, or whether that has to be stored at subconscious mind, whether that has to be stored at superconscious mind. Buddhi takes its role. So for mental health people, the action of the buddhi will be very, very low. So that's why there is a local saying in India saying that you don't have buddhi, buddhu, or buddhiless. So that's the reason. So this is the whole concept of how information is perceived at the level of the mind, at the level of the soul as well. So that's why it's important to have a connection between a soul, mind, and then the body. Soul is at the level of atma, mind is at the level of manas, karmendriyas and jnanendriyas will come at the level of the body. And this is how like I will explain you like how the Manovaha Srotas can be a leading cause for the diseases in the body. So this is a flow chart which explains at what point there are the chances for building up a disease in the body. And we all know that modern medicine explains that there is a relationship between your brain and then heart. There is a relationship between a gut and your heart, and there is a relationship between your gut and then the brain. So all these three things really play an important role in determining your mental health. I will tell you how that will be impacted. So coming to the heart, which we are talking about, the manas here, heart is not just the organ which pumps the blood. It is also the organ which can be as a seat for your emotional status in the body. So when the heart is related to the brain, so whatever your brain perceives, so that will be received by the heart. Whatever your heart perceives, the emotional status, that will be captured, registered, analyzed by the brain. So when brain and heart are busy in doing this, gut will not stay calm. It says that, okay, you two are busy doing something. Let me do something from myself as well. So what gut think is, it will make changes in differentiating the molecules, in differentiating the entire digestion process. The entire digestion process will change when a person is mentally sick. So it means when you're like, if you can really correlate it with your daily routine, the day when you're stressed, the day when you have a headache, the day when you are emotionally hurt, the day when you have a breakup, you don't really feel hungry. You don't really feel you have a good digestion. You don't really have a good bowel movement. You don't really have a good appetite. Just because your gut will always listen to your brain will always listen to your heart will always listen to your gut. So these three things go in correlation, like they work together in determining the mental health of a person. Say for example, if you look at the gut, if a person is involved in very bad lifestyle, bad dietary habits, if he is alcoholic, if he is having too many addictions in the body, so there can be a blockages created within the gut. So it means your gut can build up toxins which is developed by all these things. So when the toxins are built in the body, the pathway from the brain to the gut will be blocked with the toxins. So it means what your brain is saying will not be listened by your gut, and what your gut is saying will not be listened by your brain. And when these blockages are created, definitely a person who have a mental health issues will equally have digestion, not just the digestion, will equally have some other health issues in the body, whether it's related to the toxins, whether it's related to the organ function in their body, whether it's related to the brain function in the body and everything. So that is the reason people who have the digestion related issues, people who have the toxins, their brain will lose its capacity to learn a new thing. Their brain will lose its capacity to function properly. And that can be exhibited in the form of some headaches when you are extremely stressed in a day. That can be expressed in the form of dizziness or low emotional status as well. The same way, when there is a blockage between the brain and then the heart, even that can be a source for causing the mental health issues, because what your heart says is not listened by your brain. Your brain says something and your heart says something. That's why we say, like there is a saying that follow your heart, don't listen to your brain, because sometimes there will be a miscoordination between the emotional status of a person and then the brain of a person. So this is the whole concept related to the Mano-Maha-Srotas. So it means the channels of the manas in the body, and and also the pathways where it can cause the blockages, and how a person loses their capacity to make you understand certain things. Like as you all are from Seva, you will be counseling a lot of people. You come across a lot of people, talk to them. You must have seen many people that you talk one thing but they don't perceive it. You feel like they are listening to you but they don't actually perceive it. So it means their indriyas are functioning properly but the perception is lost. The reason why the perception is lost is due to these blockages. So the blockage can be at any level. In Ayurveda, we call it as a term called Shrotavarodha. Avarodha means blockage. Srotas is the channel. So when the channel is blocked by something, so that blockage can be due to imbalance in the doshas. That blockage can be due to imbalance in the dhatus. That blockage can be due to imbalance in the perception of this knowledge. So it can be any form of the blockages which stops a person to perceive what's going on within him. So in a simple way, I can say that a person will lose a conscious way of living. They doesn't know what they are eating. They doesn't know how they are living. They doesn't pay attention how they are breathing. They doesn't pay attention how the people around them are living, whether they are happy with them, whether they have any issues with them. So the perception also goes wrong within them. Like they might misunderstand their family members around them. They might misunderstand their boss around them, because it's not their fault. It's the blockages within their body which is not allowing them to perceive these things. So that blockage can be in the gut, in the brain, in the pathways. It can be at any level. So being an Ayurvedic practitioner, so when a person who is infected with a mental health comes to us, we must analyze at what level their blockages are. Whether it's at the level of the gut, it means whether it's due to the wrong functioning of the gut is this happening, whether it's related to the brain which is happening, whether it's related to the heart. So these blockages can be known by us by examining their nadi, which is called as a nadi pariksha in Ayurveda. We look at their pulse. We will say which doshas were imbalanced in the body, whether their doshas are balanced in state or not, whether they have any blockages with the toxins in their body or not, and we try to clear these blockages to make this channeling happen properly. So I can tell you in a simple example that if we are in Paramita, and from Paramita, if we want to go travel up to some Newcastle or somewhere like that, there is a certain roadway, there is a pathway, and if the road is blocked with a big trees or big stones, you can't really reach there. But you have to take twists and turns, you have to go around, and then you have to travel a long time to reach up to the Newcastle. So as long as there is a stone, as long as there is a tree inside in the path, you can't really reach the new castle. You can definitely reach the new castle, but it takes a lot of time. So that is the reason, like the mental health issue, the people who are inflicted with the mental health will take a lot of time to heal. You might have to give them some 10 long sessions. You might have to give them 20 long counseling sessions, some psychotherapies or some other treatments for them to keep better. But this is only happening in a superficial way. It means the blockage is still there, but you are trying to reach until Newcastle in a different way. It's taking twists and turns. You're going here, you're going there, you're going there, and then finally you're reaching the Newcastle, which takes a long time. But being an Ayurvedic practitioners, what we try to do is we try to remove this blockage, and then we try to clear the pathway, which is in this pathway, through the herbs, to the treatments, to the detoxification process and everything. So when this pathway is clear, you can put everything, like you can take a bus to reach a Newcastle, you can take a car, you can travel by walk. Whatever you do, you will reach on time, accurately to Newcastle. So this is how the Ayurvedic treatments play a role in clearing these blockages in the mental health. So what are the main reasons for these mental health disorders in Ayurveda? So Ayurveda will tell about many different reasons. Like there are multiple reasons. Like if we look into the scriptures of Ayurveda, every single aspect they related to the mental health. Every single aspect, right from how you eat to how you sleep, right from how you talk to people and what deeds you perform in your day-to-day life. Everything is related to your mental health. I will explain it to you in 3 short forms, which is very easy to understand. So, dividing in 3 different concepts. The first one is the physical reasons, which can be the causative factors for the mental health. So, the first one will be the irregular dietary habits. Like, as we all know that what are these irregular dietary habits, like wrong timings of the food, irregular combinations of the food, and having heavily processed foods and everything. So such kinds of the dietary habits can build or can cause the changes in your gut, can cause the changes in your organ functions, can toxify your system, can create the blockages in your pathways. And the other physical elements like chronic diseases like obesity, heart diseases, liver diseases, or any other hormonal issues in the body can also be the reason for causing this mental health. The other one is, the second one is the psychological reasons for that. So here comes the role of the Harishad Vargas, which we all know in our ancient culture, which is Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, the Harishad Varga, Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya. I'm going into another sloka, please don't mind about that. Harishad Vargas are Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya. So it means anything which is in a different way. Like when you look into the concept of Kama, so it means the desire. Desire is good to some extent, but your levels of the desire are going beyond its limit. That could be a reason for your mental health. Lobha, the greediness. Krodha, the anger. Anger is good. If something is going wrong around you, you can get angry. That's quite natural. But when your anger levels are going beyond its limit, but definitely that can be one of the psychological reasons for your mental health. And there goes the other Harishad Vargas, which can cause the reason for your mental health issues. And the other important thing is Asatmi Indriya Artha Samyoga. So it means inappropriate contact of sense organs with the organ. So this is an important concept in Ayurveda. It says that this could be the reason for not just the mental health but also the physical health in the body. Say like your sense organs doesn't know which one is good and which one is not good. So if like as I'm saying, like if you're like say example, if you can take your tongue doesn't know which one to eat, which one not to eat, whichever it feels like tasty, whichever is so good to good in appearance, something like a pizza or something like a wonderful dish, it just attracts to that. Your sense organs will attract to that, and your tongue doesn't know how much quantity to eat, how much quantity to eat. Your eyes doesn't know whether to look at that thing or not, whether to get attracted to that kind of food or not. So when there is an incoordination between your sense organs, and when your sense organs loses its limit, and when there is no buddhi acting in that place, so that could be the reason for causing this mental health. And prajnaparada is another concept. It says that improper use of the intelligence, which again comes the role of the buddhi here. When you lose your sense of using your intelligence in judging something or in selecting something, that is called as prajnaparada. This can be simply said that misunderstandings around you, misunderstandings about your food, saying that you must be thinking that pizza is really good for you, but pizza is not actually good for you. You must be thinking that the person who is talking to you must be very nice to you, but actually you make some judgments regarding that, thinking that okay, they are good, they are bad, or if they are bad, okay, they are doing bad to me. So this is how the prajnaparada play into its role in determining the mental health of a person. And the other thing is unexpected events in a family, where a loss of a family member or some accidents which is happening in the body, or some physical loss or other things can also impact your psychological conditions in the psychological conditions, which can lead to the mental health disorders. And here comes another concept which is a bit hypothetical, but this is also an important concept in the mental health of weak people. The one is cursing, the sharp which you get from the people around you, or some other person who is really very jealous of you or something. So there comes the concept of the curse, the concept of karma, and then the past life deeds. So this whole is another different concept which is related to the spiritual aspects explained in Ayurveda. And Ayurveda also explains about a very interesting topic called as an Unmada, and Unmada is the very important chapter in the scriptures of Ayurveda, which actually talk about the psychotic disorders in a person, and how it can really cause, and what kind of psychotic disorders were mentioned in Ayurveda. And Unmada, the term Unmada covers all the psychotic disorders, right from the schizophrenia to the bipolar disorders, or OCDs, or whatever the psychological conditions which people are commonly having now, is everything categorized under the Unmada. So it's like everything under one shade. Unmada, in simpler words, Unmada can be defined as anything which is in extremities. Anything which goes out of its limit will cause Unmada. Like as I said, anger is good to one point of time, but your anger is going beyond its limit, it's not good. And stress is good to some point. If your stress levels are going out of your limit, it can cause Mother, intoxications, the habits towards the intoxications are good to one point, something like alcohols and everything are good to one point, but when it goes out of its limit, like when your intoxication levels are going out of your limit, it's called as Unmada. And when it comes to the behavior, when you behave in extremes, like when you express your love in extreme, that's an Unmada. When you express your sorrow in extreme, that's an Unmada. When you express your anger in extreme, that's an Unmada. Any extremes in our regular behavior is categorized under the Unmada, which in simpler words we call it as a perversion. And there are many different subcategories in this Unmada. It means the Vata predominant Unmada, the Pitta predominant Unmada, Kapha predominant Unmada. So depending upon the nature of the Vata, Pitta, and then the Kapha, different types of Unmadas were expressed. So something, if you look at like if you take a psychotic disorder called depression. Depression is something when you are sorrow is going beyond its extremes. When your sorrow is in the extreme levels, it can cause unmada and it can cause the depression. So in the depression, if it is dominated by the kapha, so as I said, that kapha is more something related to the stagnant nature. So the depressed person will behave very stagnantly. Like he doesn't like to come out of his room. He doesn't like to socialize with people. He doesn't like to talk to anybody. So this is the kaphaja variety of the unmada. The same unmada, the same depression, if it is pitta predominant, it is fire factor predominant, the same depressed person will behave aggressively. Like he shut the door, he quarrels, he argues with people. He is depressed inside. He is depressed inside, but the way of his expression, the way of his expressing the depression is something very different. The same way vata predominant depression. So like that, the subcategories of the psychotic disorders were classified in the terms of vata, pitta, kapha, and we look at the gradations of what kind of depression is this, or what kind of unmada is this, and what kind of treatments we have to actually give for all these. There is an interesting concept in unmada, which is mentioned in the scriptures of Ayurveda about the graha avesha. It says that invasion by some cosmic energies, something like, we can't really explain what is that cosmic energies. So that cosmic energy can be good or bad. Like if you look at in rural areas of India, you must be hearing that, or something caught this person, something he was invaded by something, like he got some goddess on his body, or he's invaded by a spirit. So people will be talking in different ways. So if such kind of person goes to any hospitals or something, all his medical reports will be normal, but still they can't figure out why exactly he is behaving in an insane manner. So that category of the people, they were included in the Grahavesha people. It means invasion by the cosmic power. So just remember this, the word Grahavesha. I will talk what kind of treatment in Ayurveda is recommended for the people in the Grahavesha. And yeah, so coming to the management of mental health disorders in Ayurveda, there are different varieties of the treatments to give a holistic approach in healing the person. So the first one is the Ahara Vihara Niyama. So it means, like as I said, it's a multi-dimensional approach towards the inner well-being. So the first dimension is on the Ahara and Vihara Niyama, which is about your diet and lifestyle modification. So when it comes to your diet and lifestyle modifications, yes, definitely our lifestyle will impact our mental health. Like if you look at the current generation, if you look at current lifestyle patterns, people doesn't have time to follow every morning ritual, every night regimen. They just wake up in the morning, like they in a subconscious way, they just pack their lunch, they just go into their busy lifestyles, but they don't realize the importance of the regimens in our lifestyle. The regimens, the rituals will determine the conscious way of living, and it will determine our mental health, it will determine our physical health. So all these rituals, which are in the rituals means the lifestyle patterns, will impact the concept which I have told you before. The concept regarding your toxins in the body will determine what kind of ritual you are following in your lifestyle. Whether you're following a proper ritual, whether you're following a proper lifestyle or not, will determine how healthy physically and mentally you are. And Ayurveda will emphasize such lifestyle patterns in the Dinacharya, Rutucharya and Ratricharya. Dinacharya is the daily routine which starts from waking up in the morning at Brahma Muhurta, brushing your teeth, cleaning your tongue, doing the yoga, oil massages to your body, right way of bathing and right way of dressing. Ayurveda also talks about the right way of dressing according to your weather, according to your season. It's not just you put on your jeans and then just go out for your work offices. No, every fabric what you wear according to the season will determine your mental health. And it talks about the importance of applying the kajal, the eye care, the importance of doing vyayama, which is the physical activity, importance of doing the bathing, like how there are special chapters in Ayurveda which says that what's the right way to take a bath, what's the right way to do the vyayama, what's the right way to scrape your tongue and then brush your teeth, right way to do the foot massages. So all these things will help in giving you a proper routine, and when you follow a proper routine, yes, definitely this will show its impact on your mental health. The second one is Rutucharya, which is the seasonal regimen. Like how I have discussed before, knowing the doshas in particular regime, like say if example in like as we are heading towards the summer, summers are very strong in nature. Like summers will really suck the energies out of the people. No matter you are in the air conditioners, no matter you might not be exposing to the sun, but still the external environmental conditions will still impact your energies in the body, will still impact your physical health of the body. That is how the seasonal regime will determine everything, right from the way you cook your food and right from the fabric which you put on your body will determine your health according to the season. For example, in the summer, if you eat lots of biryanis, lots of or lots of masala stuff, lots of food which are fried in oil, lots of food which contains lots of oil and a lot of masalas or kinds of foods will definitely impact your physical health by generating the pitta. When pitta is generated, again inflammations are generated in the body. You will feel extreme sense of heat in the body. And when extreme sense of heat is generated, that will again impact your mind, it will impact your mental health. And it says that, and it will give some stressful conditions by disturbing your whole digestion system. So that's why it's important to keep your food as sattvic as possible while cooking. And also the fabric which you wear. Ayurveda recommends what season, in which season, what fabric you have to wear, and what should be the material of the fabric which you are using. Whether it's a polyester, whether it's a synthetic, cotton, jeans, or whether it's a wool. Every season, every Sandhi Kala will have a particular thing which talks about those rituals. Ratricharya, night regime. I think this is really important for all of us in the current circumstances, where night regimes are really important in determining the mental health. Like what everyone is doing now is from the time when you wake up out of your bed and the time when you go into your bed in the night, you are just with gadgets, you are just with the technologies. People don't realize how this is affecting your mental health. So it slowly diverts you from the conscious way of living. It slowly diverts you that how you have to prepare your body while going to sleep. Ayurveda says that you have to teach your body before going to sleep, that it means you have to prepare your body before going to sleep. You have to tell your senses to relax. You have to tell your body to relax. You have to tell your whole systems to relax. So that relaxation should come from the time you had your dinner, from the time you get away from the gadgets, from the time you go into a sleep. This determines the whole pattern of the night regime, and that's again a whole different concept. So we actually looked into in depth in the night regime of the persons for people who have extreme insomnia conditions, like who have, like people say that I'm rolling in the bed, I'm not having enough sleep, or it's getting difficult for me to fall into sleep, and I'm not having the quality of sleep, and I don't feel fresh in the morning, and though I'm sleeping, I don't feel fresh in the morning. So when people have such kinds of issues, yes, definitely it will impact your mental health. When you don't have enough sleep, you can't stay healthy, you can't be focused, you can't pay attention on your work, you can't have concentration. So definitely it will impact your mental health. And in such cases, we look into the night regime. So it means we talk what you do from the time you have come back from the office until you sleep. We analyze the whole pattern, we will set a particular theme, and then we will just tell them that, okay, this is the thing you have to do. And this is really, really important for people who have mental health issues, and we just take care that their night regime is perfectly planned. And coming to the ahara, so Ayurveda recommends certain eating habits, certain dietary recommendations. So in Ayurveda, it says that your food should contain all the six tastes, right from sweet, salt, pungent, bitter, sour things. Like all the six tastes in your food will enhance the activity of the digestion system. Like if you take some sweet along with your food, it has got some metabolic activity in your body. If you have mirch, if you have some spicy things that have got some metabolic activities in the body. And the selection of the taste of the food should be according to the seasons. It should be according to the weather. It should be according to your body type. It should be according to your lifestyle. It's not that every person is allowed to eat sweet in all the seasons, all the time. There is a particular time to eat sweet. There is a particular way to eat sweet. There is a particular way to prepare the sweet for each different person. And Ayurveda will emphasize a lot about this. And to improve the mental health, it's recommended to follow selection of the taste of the food and the selection of the type of the food, like selecting the foods which are easy to digest, something like sattvic food, selecting sattvic food, avoiding the foods which are rajasic in nature, something like processed foods, meat products, dairy products, pizzas, burgers, chips, sugars, like all the foods which contains preservatives in that, they have the properties of rajasic and tamasic. So people who already have mental health issues, their gut will be a whole mess. They have blockages, they have toxins. On top of that, if they have such kinds of foods, definitely they can't heal their body. Like as I said, the blockage can't be removed again. So having a sattvic food will be good for their gut. It will be soothing to their gut, and it will be easy to remove the blockages, and their mental health will be improved. And Ayurveda also recommends how you have to eat the food. It's not that eating your food by looking at your mobile. It's not eating your food by looking at your laptop or some working. There is a specific posture. Ayurveda says there is a specific posture where you have to sit and eat the food with crossed legs, with your spine erect. When you sit in this posture, there will be some mechanisms happening in your body. The generation of the enzymes in the body will happen properly, so that the food will get digested properly. And not just the digestion of the food, the absorption of the food, the benefits of the food will come in that way. And there is a right way of eating according to the seasons, as I said, according to the geographical area, the place where you come from. Like when you look at the platform of India, you will see different state of people will have different cuisines. That is the reason they have different cuisines, because the geographical way of eating is also important. Like if you take people from Kerala, they eat a lot of fish. If you take people from Punjab, or if you take people from Delhi, they eat a lot of rotis. They have a lot of paneers. If you take people from UP, they have a lot of dairy products within them. If you take people of Gujarat, they add sweet in their every dish. There is a reason behind their cuisines. It is depending upon their seasonal and then the geography. So the right way of choosing what you eat will also will determine your mental health. Yes, and so here comes the discussion about the ahara, like diet and lifestyle modifications, which will determine your physical and then the mental health. And here comes the important role of the shodhana, which is the detoxification process. Like as I'm all discussing about the blockages within the body, how these blockages can be removed. We can't just take it with our hand. It's the blockages which are deeply seated in your gut, which are deeply seated in your systems in the body. So that blockages can be removed through the panchakarmas, which is the Ayurvedic way of detoxifying your body. Most of the people think that panchakarma is just going to an Ayurvedic center and then getting a massage or getting a shirodhara done. It's not like that. That is not at all a panchakarma. Panchakarma is deep cleansing of your systems. Like if you have a toxins at the level of the cells, at the level of your neurons, at the level of your hormones, or at the level of your gut, so that can be cleansed through various detoxification process like Vamana, where the detoxification is from the gut level, not just the gut, from the stomach level to your clavicle and through the head. So this part is cleansed through a detoxification technique called as a Vamana, where toxins will come out through vomitings. So like people will be like that's a lot big procedure to perform the Vamana. And the second one is the Virechana, which is cleansing your systems. It means cleansing your gut by increasing the bowel movements. So your like all the toxins will be cleansed from the level of the stomach, intestines, the whole large intestine, the whole small intestine. It not only just cleanse your systems, but in the process of detoxification, it will drag the toxins to one place and then it will start flushing out. The other important thing is the Vasti. So Vasti, important procedure is Vasti. So Vasti is a type of Panchkarma which is to cleanse the toxins at your neuronal way. So Vasti will determine to cleanse the toxins at the level of the brain, because gut is believed to be the second brain in the body. Gut, especially your large intestine, have highest supply of the nervous system in the body. So when you cleanse your colon with an Ayurvedic decoctions, with an Ayurvedic oils, your brain will be activated. And Nasya. So Nasya is another Panchkarma where we will cleanse the whole head. We will cleanse the doshas in the head, so that if there are any layers of the toxins which are at the level of the brain and at the level of your sinuses, so that can be cleansed. The last one is the Rakta Mokshana, which is bloodletting. This is a blood purification where the bloodletting is done with the leech therapy. It can be done through vein section, like where we will cleanse the blood. So Rakta Mokshana is especially useful for people who have autoimmune conditions, who have blood-related issues, who have deep level of psoriasis, or who have eczemas, who have other autoimmune conditions, who have poor liver function. So Rakta Mokshana will be useful in that kinds of health issues. So all the detoxification process in a mental health will help in cleansing your body. When your body is cleansed, so whatever the herb you take, whatever the treatment you take, it will be perceived well. They can understand well. Like in Ayurveda, there is a beautiful example that they say, if you want to dye a cloth with a color, the cloth should be clean. If there is a mud and then dirt or some grease materials to the cloth, it can't be dyed. It can't be dyed properly. The same way, we are cleansing the cloth properly so that the dyeing will happen properly. The dyeing through the therapies, through the counseling therapies, or through the herbs, it will happen properly. And there next comes the Shamana kinds of the treatments. So So the Shamana means the herbs. So after the detoxification, we heal the body, like once the blockage is cleared. So we have to actually start the process of improving their brain activity, improving their perception of the senses, improving their organ functions in the body. So for that, there is an important concept in Ayurveda, which is the Gritapana, which is intake of the ghee. So when a ghee is processed with herbs and then given internally, it straight away reaches to the brain, and then it will correct the neuronal functions and the chemical imbalances happening within the brain, because brain is prepared with lipids. Brain have a barrier which is prepared with the lipids. So only ghee has a property to cross the barrier and then nourish the brain. And there are many other herbs which also have the property to enhance the function of the brain and to calm down the chemical imbalances happening within our brain. The herbs like Brahmi, Shankapushpi, Yeshtimadhu, Guduchi, Shatavari, so they have a significant property to improve the cognitive function of the brain and to improve the perception of the people and to balance these chemical imbalances happening within their brain. So all these herbs are absolutely toxic free, and they have a very high values to improve your mental health. So these varieties of the herbs are called as Medhya Rasayanas. If Medhya means brain, rasayanas means nourishment. The herbs which nourish your brain, the herbs which nourish your manas were called as the Meda rasayanas. And here I wanted to talk about the other important therapies apart from detoxification and the natural herbs, which is called as the Murgatheras. So these are the special treatments which are there in Ayurveda to improve the brain functions. Something like Shirodhara is a one therapy where oil is poured on the head in a certain velocity and certain point with certain oils. So when oil is poured on your head in that way, so as you know that the flowing water will generate current. The same way, the flowing oil on the forehead will generate the microvolts in the brain, which will correct the differences in the microvolts. Like there is a circuit in the brain, we all know that. There will be some potentials generated in the brain. So the potential which is generated from the Shirodhara will balance the potential imbalances which are happening in the brain, and it can also help in relaxing your brain, calming down your stressful thoughts, activities, and for each psychotic disorder, for different psychotic issues in the body, different oils were used, different methodologies were followed, different velocities of Shirodharas were used. And I would like to show a short video on how Shirodhara is conducted. So this is how the procedure of Shirodhara is usually done. I would like to show a short video on this so that you will get to know what is Shirodhara and how it is done. So a person is made to lie on the table like that. So we usually close their eyes so that the oil will not drip into their eyes. Many of you must have experienced Shirodhara or must have heard about Shirodhara. But as I'm saying, for each psychological condition, for each mental health, different oils were used, different velocities of flow of the oil was selected. It's not just dripping of oil on your head, it has got a significance behind that. So this way, the oil will be poured on your head and it's massaged constantly. So we use different kinds of oils, different kinds of grutas. Sometimes we even use milk, which is processed in the decoctions to do this therapy. And this is another therapy, another important therapy, which is called as Shirovasti, where the oil is made to stagnate in on your scalp for a certain period of time. Shirodhara is oil will be flowing on your head. Shirovasti, oil will just remain on your head for a certain period of time. In my college days, we used to practice this on patients who have extreme schizophrenia conditions, and the result is unbelievable. Like we used to get referrals from the local government mental hospitals for schizophrenia and bipolar disorder people to get this treatment done. And this is how the treatment is done. The Shirovasti treatment is done. You can have a look at this. So this is how the person is made to sit in a chair. Yes. So this is how a material is plastic or some leather kind of material will be surrounded around their head. This is called as Shirovasti. And the oil is poured from the top, and it is poured until 1/4 or a at the level of half, depending on what kind of mental health issues the person have. And usually we shave the head of the person before doing this therapy. It's not that it can't work if the person have a hair on top of the scalp. So we shave their head and then we used to do this therapy. So these two are like, apart from the detoxification process, so these two are the important Ayurvedic therapies which we commonly use in the extreme psychotic disorders. And the other therapies were the Shiro Abhyanga, which means the head massages with some Ayurvedic oils, and the Siropichu, where we keep certain oils or some certain powders or certain concoctions in a leaf. Like we take a leaf and we smear those things on the leaf, and then we exactly place it in the crown area, in the center of the scalp, like this. So, which is around the Brahmarandra, which is believed to be the highest spiritual energy center in our body. So, when you put a concoction or some material or some oils or some vritas in that point, it straight away act on the energies in the body, and it will help in improving in the management of certain mental health issues. And it also improves the blood circulation to the brain, and it has got many good benefits for these therapies. So these are the therapies which are relevant to the mental health issues in Ayurveda. There are many other therapies in Ayurveda like Ayurvedic massages, kiris, vastis and everything, but these are relevant to mental health issues. And these are the list of certain gritas and tailas which we commonly use for conducting these treatments. Something like Panchagavya Grita, Kalyanaka Grita, Mahapaisachika Grita. So these gritas, like as I said, this can be taken internally and it can be used for detoxifications or to the cleansing therapies, for the therapies which we have talked about. And there are certain oils like Brahmi Taila, Chandanadi Taila, Kshirabala Tailam, Balashwaranda Tailam. So these tailas were used for performing the therapies like Shirodhara or the Shirovastis or for the Shiropichus. So with these oils and then the tritas, we perform the therapies. And it's also important that what kind of ghee we select for the person. It's not just Brahmi Grita will work for all the psychological disorders. It's not. Brahmi Grita, it will work for Vata kind of person in a different way, for Pitta person in a different way, for Kapha person in a different way. The same Brahmi Grita will change according to the seasons. The same Brahmi Grita will change according to the diet and lifestyle. The same Brahmi Grita will change according to their entire lifestyle pattern. So before handling any mental health cases in Ayurveda, we look in depth into their body. It's like we scan their whole body in terms of their energies, in terms of their cellular functions, molecular functions, and we will see where the blockages were there, and then we will do it. And the other important therapies which I wanted to talk about is these three therapies, which is called as Sattvavajaya Chikitsa in Ayurveda. So Ayurveda described about psychotherapy and other behavioral therapies way back some thousands of years ago itself, which is called as Sattvavajaya Chikitsa. And it recommends that to do a counseling, to do a cognitive behavioral therapy, to do a hypnotic therapy, or to do a past life regression therapy, it's important to cleanse your body first, to change your diet and lifestyle pattern first, and then do the psychotherapy. Then it makes the wonders. Without cleansing your body, no matter how many sessions of counseling you take, no matter how many sessions of cognitive behavior you take, it will be only a partial improvement for the people. And the improvement will also be at the level of the toxins in the body, at the level of the blockages in the body. So it's important to cleanse your body first, to remove the blockages, and then go for the treatments. And the Yukti Vyapashtra Chikitsa is nothing but the ghee, the intake of the ghee, what I have told, the treatments, what I have told, and the usage of the herbs, what I have told. Last one is the Daiva Vyapashtra Chikitsa. This is an interesting point in Ayurveda. Here, Ayurveda also emphasizes on the use of mani, which is the crystals, germs, and the germs which our astrologers give for all of us to wear if you have a bad fate or something like that. And it also talks about meditations, chanting, mantra meditations, mantra chantings, and homa, you all know the homa, right? The rituals which is offered to the fire god, and it also talk about sacrifices, which is bali, which we do in the rural parts of the India. So yes, there are different spiritual healing process also were mentioned in Ayurveda to deal the other aspects of the mental health issues, something like a curse, something like karma, or something like grahavesha, which I was talking, that invasion of the body via cosmic energies. So, with for such kinds of mental health issues, Ayurveda mentions that if nothing is in your hand, when you have tried everything, but still the patient is not improving, do this. So, it means asking the God, asking the supreme power to allow your body to heal. That asking will be done through following certain rituals, like chanting a mantra or doing the meditation practices and everything. Uh, so it's all about surrendering that person to the God and asking Him to help to heal them, because uh, science is I believe especially that yes, definitely science is really important in healing the body, but there are many things in this universe which is far beyond the medical science, which is far beyond the understanding of the science, which is still under the process of the evaluation. And I hope this comes into a limelight in healing certain aspects where modern science doesn't have an answer for this. Yeah. So this is the whole thing about Ayurveda, how we deal, how we analyze the body, how we activate the healing systems in the body, what we will do when you come for a consultations. So just I wanted to tell you that please don't think that Ayurveda is only a system of medicine which use the herbs or which use the natural ways of the treatment to heal your body. It's not. It's a highly evolved science, but it's lacking the recognition because the Western medicine needs some evidences to show for them. It needs some lab investigations. But I think there comes a point where they will realize that the lab reports doesn't determine your health. The conclusions of your psychiatrist doesn't determine your mental health. It's far beyond everything. And when you realize the importance of natural ways of the healing systems, definitely I think all of us will go into this path to heal your body naturally, rather than just depending on the antidepressants, or rather than just depending on the chemical products, which only just subsides your neuronal activity, but it will not actually heal you. They might be treating you, but Ayurveda will actually heal you. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening to me today. And I thank Seva Australia for giving me this opportunity to share this valuable information